Welcome to a special edition of War Room Impeachment, 14 November, year of our Lord 2019. It is episode 29. We're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. Really want to appreciate the entire production staff of John Fredericks Radio Network in making this happen, these afternoon shows, special editions. We want to do it today because there's so much breaking news. We want to do this because we've got a lot to tee up tomorrow morning. On our regular show, be episode 30. That'll be 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A couple of announcements to make that are important announcements. Number one, through the good offices of John Frederick, who's one of the great mavens in radio. Actually was able to put this show together and produce it in 24 hours when we had the idea. We're announcing that, and in fact, Maggie Haberman of the New York Times tweeted it out, that we are going to be on the Salem Radio Network, the largest conservative populist network out there, starting Monday at 9 o'clock for the Salem Radio Network. Also, through the offices of John Frederick and the John Frederick Radio Network, we've got a number of announcements of new stations that are picking us up. WTRH 93.3 FM in suburban St. Louis and Ramsey, Illinois, will be picking us up at 9 a.m. This is all local time. KSLM in Portland, Oregon, 104.3 FM and 1220. That's 1220 a.m. at 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's in Portland, Oregon. In Little Rock, Arkansas, we've got KOXE 101.1 FM in Little Rock, Arkansas. That will be at 8 p.m. at night. And in addition, last but not least, in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Freedom AM 1570 at 8 p.m. We'll be making more announcements of that. We're putting all our affiliates up on the website. The website's on fire.
Yes.
My wingman is Raheem Ghassan. We've got Jason Miller up around Capitol Hill scouting out news that we'll be breaking tomorrow. We've got Alexandra Priat.
Since my family is Preet.
There's Priat to me. Preet. And since you didn't get to testify in federal court, we got to hear what the... Okay, we got tons to go through today. We're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. You can get us on iTunes. You can get us on all the platforms.
Let me stress that a little stronger.
Yeah, good. And talk about reviews and talk about subscriptions.
Because, look, there's a lot of...
And it's free.
There's a lot of left-wing impeachment podcasts out there. There's more people talking about doing this thing. They've seen what we've done. Fast Company, big entrepreneur business magazine, called us the best of the impeachment podcasts out there. Fast
Company is an entrepreneurs magazine, venture capital, West Coast based, and very serious emerging growth companies. And they said we were the number one rated podcast.
So it's very important to us here at War Room Impeachment that you go on and get that podcast or wherever it is, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, whatever, and leave a review. I hope it's a 5-star review, but we'll leave that up to the audience to make their
anything
mind.
You want to, but
I feel like an
review.
Uber driver. Make sure I get a 5-star review, please, ladies and gentlemen. And that pushes us up the rankings. It means that the ordinary person who just loads up their podcast app and searches for impeachment, we want to be top of that list. So help us out, get us up there.
We've had a big, I think, a very big demarcation today, and part of that, Raheem. Before we get into talk about policy, the numbers. I don't want to throw on the screen, but the numbers from the reviews from yesterday. Nancy Pelosi, we had Matt Gaetz on this morning. Matt Gaetz broke the fever when he went down to the SCIF. Mm-hmm. The SCIF is a secured space beneath the Capitol. It's in the bowels of the Capitol. It's a classified space where the Intelligence Committee meets, people that have these high security clearances. They hear all the different things that, because the commission, the Church Commission back in the 70s, because of what came out of the Kennedy assassination and Watergate and other things, they felt that the executive branch was too far ahead on the intelligence side, and so the legislative branch got dialed in. They built these SCIFs over there to get these classified briefings. That's where the Star Chamber of Adam Schiff was taking place before Matt Gaetz went down there and brilliantly broke the fever and got it now on national TV. With Jerry Nadler having been bench pressed by Corey Lewandowski on national TV, and Mueller having gone to sleep on national TV with Nadler, Nancy Pelosi and Cummings, the great congressman, whether you liked his ideology or not, he knew how to run the Oversight Committee. Cummings passed away. Nadler's clearly over his head, so they had to go to Schiff in the intelligence community, in the intelligence thing. Yesterday's was just not gripping TV. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, they wanted it to be boring, so they put this out there in a weaponized thing. I'm not buying that. I think they wanted to grip the nation. It didn't happen. It was nap time on this. Talk about the numbers. What are the metrics show us?
Of course, they wanted it to grip the nation. They wanted everybody tuning in, and they put their star witnesses, George Kent and William Taylor, first and up front. They thought this would be big blockbuster television. Even in the rooms, remember, firstly, by the way, Steve, it was your idea for me to tweet that people were leaving the rooms. I had a source in the room yesterday who were telling me people were leaving the room, and you said to me, just wouldn't happen during Watergate. I tweeted out exactly what was happening. Got 7,000 retweets. I think this is one of my biggest to date.
Bossie was there with Meadows. They took that shot later as Bossie, Meadows, and Gates. We kidded it looked like Murderer's Row, but Bossie was there for Clinton. Remember, Bossie was the head of investigations for the House under the Speaker. He said it was unlike Clinton, where the thing was electric. You knew something big was happening. This was a historic day, and after the first hour, people were wandering out, leaving their seats.
Yeah, they were leaving their seats, and I put that out, and there were a lot of blue check marks losing their minds over what I was saying. They say, oh, you're fake news, and, people are staying there. Maybe they're just going to the bathroom. They're probably coming back. They weren't, and now we know that same thing has played out, or with the television ratings also. A grand total of 13.1 million Americans tuned in to watch.
What did Mueller have?
So let's get to that. So Mueller had 12.9 million watching his hearing on Capitol Hill, which 12.9, 13.1. It's
but I was in Europe. Was Mueller on broadcast TV also,
yes,
or just cable? Mueller was on broadcast.
Mueller was on all of them the same way. So this is a like-for-like comparison.
Yes.
You're talking about the impeachment of a president, a sitting president, and the testimony of Mueller got basically the same thing. But what's more interesting than that is that the Kavanaugh proceedings, remember, got 20 million live viewers.
Wow.
So whatever's happening here, the Democrats are hemorrhaging a serious number of people out there.
The reason that we're talking about this is all going to be judged at the end by the American people. This is about polling. This is about people's awareness. These metrics, these overnight ratings are very important. Are people tuning in, and particularly are lower information voters starting to tune in and make this coming? They're seeing this for the first time. It sounds like not a big audience.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it at all.
Now, are they going to keep on broadcasting? And this is key. Broadcast television is everything. That's where you're getting the Oprah of the things. That's where you're getting people looking at Dr. Oz, and all of a sudden they're going to watch this. Is it on broadcast tomorrow? Still scheduled?
We don't know yet. I mean, it's still scheduled, but there haven't been any announcements.
A couple of more days of 13 million, and next week where they're jamming it up. Let's go. Another huge event today. The President of the United States. Let's go first to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton gave, and remember, when we went through the Mueller thing, the first guy I called was Lanny Davis. Say, hey, walk me through how you structure this thing. He said, number one, get everything out of the Oval Office. Let the president run the country. Let him do the business that he was elected to do. Set up the apparatus, everything outside. What did Clinton tell President Trump today?
Well, we're trying a new system here for us to play clips, so I'm going to jump straight into the clip, cross my fingers, and hope you finish that hot coffee before this breaks.
So what would your message to President Trump be? What would your message to President Trump be about, and when he says, well, I can't work with these people, they're impeaching me?
My message would be, look, you got hired to do a job. You don't get the days back you blow off. Every day is an opportunity to make something good happen. And I would say I've got lawyers and staff people handling this impeachment inquiry, and they should just have at it. Meanwhile, I'm going to work for the American people. That's what I would do.
That was Bill Clinton.
That's what he said back in the 90s. He kept saying, I'm doing the people's business every day. Remember, his approval ratings towards the end of that were in the 60s, 65%. And I didn't want to make it. Bill Clinton's starting to sound like an old man, isn't he?
Yes.
That's the first time.
It's the vegan diet.
That's the first time I've really heard. It's really struck me. He sounded like an old man.
Yeah, he didn't sound exactly strong, and he's aging.
I think it's a good message for the president. Remember when al-Baghdadi, I think I was talking to you about this, when he took down al-Baghdadi, the next day the New York Times had 5 pages on al-Baghdadi related stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They had some pretty important impeachment stuff. It was on page 12 with the tire ads, right? If you go about the business of the country, you're going to shove the stuff where it is. Nancy Pelosi clearly thinks something's happening, and here's why. Today, she's talking about USMCA.
Yes.
Right? They're talking about how they're going to fit it in. A big development happened. Now, here's the big development. You got no ratings yesterday, and your witnesses didn't work. That's your happening.
Yes.
She's saying, Trump, that's all baloney. They now know that they're going to have the opportunity cost to the American people. Beirut's on fire. Hong Kong's on fire. We don't have a trade deal with China. We don't have USMCA. We don't have opioid settled. We don't have any of this. That's the opportunity cost. The people's business is now, everything in the city is completely galvanized on that. The president then came out. He also tweeted. I want you to read the tweet. This is very important. What did the tweet say?
Tweet from President Trump today at 9:49 a.m. That hearing was about a policy dispute. He's quoting Robert Ray on Varney. Regular people watching this cannot conclude that the President of the United States can be impeached. But it's what we've said all along, Steve. It's a policy dispute.
This is very powerful. I want to go to, in this seat right here, Nigel Farage sat 10 days ago. Let's go to Nigel, and then I want you to jump in, because we've got to coach the American people up on exactly why are we in Ukraine? Why are we talking about this? Why is this so important that we have to impeach a sitting president? We have to overturn an election to unseat a president because of what happened in Ukraine.
I'll give a little bit of background just very quickly. It was late 2013 when you and I first met, Steve. It was in London, in Brown's Hotel. I wore a green sweater. I'm pretty sure you had your battle jacket on, and you asked me what my journalistic
You
plans...
remember the first time we met?
I
and did that
absolutely
look detail?
remember.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I remember. As I always,
very English.
As I always describe it to people, it was not love
Very
at first sight. There was. You asked me what my journalistic plans were for the next month or so, and I told you I was going to Ukraine because it all started kicking off in Ukraine. And,
Yes.
and you said to me, like, make sure you get pictures, etc., etc. We're going to start up a Breitbart London bureau, which we did about 4 or 5 months later.
And I wanted that stuff covered.
And we covered it all. I went back and looked today. I actually went on the 18th of December, 2013, and saw firsthand, and I've still got all the pictures. We should throw them up on the War Room news site, in fact. All the pictures from what was taking place there. I spoke to people on the ground. I realized what was going on, and Nigel knew at the very same time what was going on. I spoke to him about it as well. This was at the time about EU expansionism. I'm going to let you guys listen to Nigel Farage and make your own minds up.
So why did the Ukraine blow up? Why has it dominated so much of our discussion ever since? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the European Union's foreign policy is they wanted to expand to the east and for the Ukraine to become part of the European Union. And worse than that, we even had idiots like David Cameron suggesting the Ukraine join NATO. Now, you are then pushing directly into Putin's
the Ukraine
Russian
was the
interest.
killing field in World War II, right? Between
Absolutely.
the Nazis and the Russian defense thing. This was 15 million people or some humongous.
Appalling things that took place there. But so what happened here is, Putin. Whatever you think of Putin, he is there to defend the Russian national interest, and if you encroach on his territory up to his borders, he sees that as a threat. If you poke the Russian bear with a stick, don't be surprised when he fights
So
back.
your critics are going to say, jump in here, your critics are going to say, this is once again, Trump's a Russian asset, Trump's Putin's buddy, Trump loves Nigel Farage is on the payroll of the Russians, Nigel Farage has been out there promoting the Russians. How do you defend against that?
I am telling you that what happened in the Ukraine was a coup took place, an elected president was removed. Now, whether he was corrupt or not is a separate issue. He was an elected president, he was removed in Kiev in a coup by people waving the flag of the European Union. All right? It was expansionism and globalism that has led to all
What
of
year?
this.
That was 2013?
Would you call it regime change? It was supported by the US and EU.
Oh, yes.
Regime change policy.
Absolutely.
This was central to Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Kerry's, that foreign policy of the globalists, that wing of the Democratic Party.
Yes, and they act together, don't they?
David Cameron.
The same policy decisions in the Ukraine, the same policy decisions about Iran, for argument's sake. All of these things are being decided by the globalists, and I don't think the general public actually understand the background of this. They
do not.
They don't get.
It's hidden from them.
The sheer level of ambition that the globalists have, and far from it. I would make this point. Far from the European Union bringing peace, they directly caused the war, Crimea, and all of those things. I would even go further back and say that the EU's recognition of Croatia actually sparked off the Balkan Wars as well.
Steve.
This is what we've got to coach up the American people on. People don't know this history. This is why Ukraine became such a huge deal. This is why President Trump is sitting there saying, hey, how this thing started, we have to have Germany, we have to have France. Other people got to put some money in the till. America first doesn't mean walking away from these situations, but it means, hey, if we take leadership, we need allies. And Ukraine is not an ally. Ukraine is what they call a strategic partner, okay? They're coming to help Ukraine, and is very sensitive about this Russian situation. Look, I was on a Navy destroyer for 4 years. Our mission was hunting Soviet submarines, Russian submarines, to keep them away from carrier battle groups. I don't need to be lectured, right, by a bunch of pencil necks about Russia this, Russia that. The Russians are bad guys. I got that. But it's one thing in a sphere of influence, particularly that was a killing field in World War II. You got to be sensitive, or you're going to get in situations where you got to send American anti-tank missiles there, right? And we're not, as President Trump said, he's not looking to start any more wars, right? America first is that we spent $7 trillion in the Middle East. We got, 15,000 young men and women killed, 40,000 wounded or have PTSD. It's time to stop this madness. And that was you try to do. That's why it's a policy debate. That's why I think this thing could be very helpful. The New York Times, on the cover this morning, had something that was very powerful. The Lebovich said that this was about the old school. This is a return of old Washington in defiance of a raucous era.
Right.
And this was about the permanent political classes, foreign policy. That's what this debate's about. I think it's a healthy debate to have. I think if President Trump continues to focus on this, the American people, we didn't really have this fully vetted in 2016. He won about the end of managed decline. It shouldn't be lost on anybody. Where's Hillary Clinton the last couple of days? She's in London.
Yep.
She's in London on her book tour, right? A book tour about empowered women. Oh, it doesn't have Margaret Thatcher.
Yes.
Just saying, okay? Talk about it. It doesn't have Margaret Thatcher. But what did she say over there? It's not too late to reverse leaving the EU,
Yep.
right? The same thing that Tuss says. These globalists, and this is the McCain, Bush, Madeleine Albright, Barack Obama, John Kerry. It's not about political party. They have a certain way that they roll in this town. They think that our military is a global humanitarian expeditionary force. It's the reason, and particularly on the John Fredericks Radio Network, where we have so many patriots in Virginia, right? The military bases and veterans and people who volunteer. And I was a naval officer in the Persian Gulf Pacific. My daughter's a West Point grad. She was in Iraq with the 101st. We have a $1 trillion defense budget. Don't believe the $780 billion. When you add it all up, put a little interest on top of it, it's $1 trillion a year. And we got the kids in this audience, the deplorables, sons and daughters. They're at the 38th parallel in Korea. They're on the ships in the South China Sea. They're marching patrol in the Hindu Kush today. They're in Eastern Europe. This is what they voted not to do. Okay, they voted not to continue this madness. They voted Trump. They wanted to look at every penny. They wanted to look in the eye of every guy. Did he really need this? Is it going to? And here's the thing about the Bidens. This was not about a political point. This is what everybody did as vice president. And China is worse than Ukraine. But even in Ukraine, in a country that's rated the number one most corrupt country in Europe by The Guardian, and the number 3, I think, in Ernst & Young worldwide, which that's saying something, okay? To have American crony capitalism put into, hey, you're not corrupt enough. Let's have some of our, let's layer a level of corruption on this. Is Joe Biden above the law? Is his drug addict son, and I'm not even getting on the fact of how he became a naval officer for a month before he started dealing drugs. And I'm not talking about the $1.5 billion he took from the Chinese Communist Party and sold us out in the South China Sea, which if we ever go to a shooting war in the next 5 years, it'll be there because of those islands that Joe Biden oversaw the construction of, look the other way, the Munich of the 21st century. If they want to have a policy debate, bring it. This is what President Trump ought to hammer every day. He ought to do what President Clinton said, do your job as commander-in-chief, and he ought to go on a tour and say, hey, here's what it's about. Let me lay down here exactly what I was thinking about the Ukraine, exactly why I had to pay attention to it, exactly why they should only get the money when they can guarantee that it's going to be spent on exactly what we say on the corruption. And I want Macron. I want Merkel. I want the rest of these guys throwing some money into the till. Raheem.
Yep, I think you can wrap the show on that, frankly. Look, those things are manifestly true, and Trump needs to go out there on the campaign trail and not just have, read the transcript with people standing, even though that's a strong message, read the transcript. The transcript shows that the call
granularity,
was fine, but
yes.
actually getting down to the gory details of this, because the gory details are very gory indeed. These guys, and we'll talk about Nancy Pelosi in the New York Times right now saying bribery. We're now talking about bribery.
Why is she shifting to bribery?
Well, she's shifting to bribery because quid pro quo doesn't work. People don't understand, the Latin term, and also quid pro quo is how a lot of people barter in this country anyway. It doesn't sound like that bad a deal. Bribery sounds like a bad deal.
It's also in the Constitution, I think, under high crimes, misdemeanors, and bribery.
Bribery also brings to mind a lot of things that people have heard about Trump in the past. They hear about the Stormy Daniels case and things like that. So it kind of undergirds things that people already maybe.
Do you believe they
poll
poll tested that? Do you think they poll tested extortion?
Absolutely market tested that. They had people in a room and they said, which of these sounds the worst? All of these guys do that, of course, and bribery comes out tops. But you want to talk bribery, Steve? Let's talk about Joe Biden going up there to the Council of Foreign Relations, and he said that he went to the Ukrainians and said, if you don't drop this prosecutor, then you're not getting the $1 billion in loan guarantees. That is bribery. And let's ask this question. This is the critical question that every American needs to ask when they think about what process is taking place in front of them. Was it the Trump family that took money from the Ukrainians, or was it the Biden family that took money from the Ukrainians? And your answer to that question gives you the answer to who's guilty and who's projected.
Is he above the law? I mean, I don't know why I don't know why we're not making a bigger deal, but Hunter Biden should come before the nation in this circus, and he should have to sit there and talk about.
Yeah, well, Will Hurd, Republican, is more interested in hearing from Rudy Giuliani than he is from Hunter Biden.
Is that absolutely we found that out, or is that just have we checked that transcript?
I have watched that clip. He was on Fox News today, and he says he wants Giuliani to answer questions. He says
he wants the president's lawyer. This guy's sitting on there as a Republican. And he was said by, was it not said by a...
you want to hear it, Steve?
Well, hang on. We're going to do it right when we come back from the break. What we're going to do is we're going to take this clip. We're going to take a short commercial break here on the John Fredericks Radio Network. You're listening to War Room Impeachment. Stephen K. Bannon, Raheem Gassam, Jason Miller's out rounding up some information that we'll use on tomorrow's show. Very honored to be part of the John Fredericks Radio Network. Remember, we're on every day of the week. We're on every day of the week from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., 7 days a week until the day after Donald J. Trump, 45th President of the United States, is acquitted.
War Room, Impeachment, Bannon, Miller, Kassam. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to War Room Impeachment, 14 November, year of our Lord 2019. It's the 29th episode here in the John Fredericks Radio Network. We'll be on Salem Radio Network starting Monday, and also all these great affiliates that the John Fredericks team is putting together. We're also on Spotify, we're on Stitcher, we're on iTunes, everywhere you want to go for the podcast. Just go subscribe, write a review, whether you love it or you hate it. The whole purpose of this is to give you information. We're not here to tell you how to think. We're not here to tell you what to think. We're trying to deconstruct the witnesses. We're going to deconstruct the testimony. We're going to give you all the background. We're going to talk to you about all the policy moves that are going on, all the different. This is political warfare at its highest, played by masters of the game, Donald J. Trump and Nancy Pelosi. So this is big league. And if you don't think this process is going on, the reason I did this is John Fredericks. We had a radio row, you remember Alexandra. We had a radio row on election night on November 8th of 2016 on the 14th floor of Trump Tower, and one person showed up. One radio host showed up. And it's, radio's got to manage costs. That was John Frederick. He's got a feel for the base on the John Frederick Radio Network. Show's fantastic. And when I came on a couple of weeks ago and started talking about this, it was like, oh no, it's fake news. It's a deep state. It's witch hunt. Hey, it may be all of that. It may be part of that. But here's what it is. It's a real process. And we see this going forward as Nancy Pelosi is going to roll through these public hearings. She's then going to flip a report to the Judiciary Committee. I don't believe right now Judiciary is going to call additional witnesses. I think they're going to argue amongst themselves, bring at least two charges of impeachment, although Matt Gaetz this morning on the show, on War Room Impeachment, said he thought it would be one umbrella charge, abuse of power, and everything would fall underneath that. I still think it's going to be abuse of power and obstruction of justice. at least 2, and then they're going to vote on that sometime around right before Christmas. I happen to believe, as I projected out, it's going to be Saturday, December 21st. They're going to get out of town, toss it to the Senate, and we had Mike Braun on today. We want to go to Mike Braun's. You got Mike Braun's piece? Mike Braun, the senator from Indiana, a Trump-like figure that won in Indiana. Let's listen to Mike Braun.
With all the information we've got, we need also the ability to, through that process, drive home what we've started to do here in the House. I think it's inevitable that they're going to come up with an article of impeachment. It's going to come to the Senate. And I think that timetable is right. I think we'll probably get that before Christmas. And based on what happened back in the Clinton proceedings, 6 to 8 weeks could be, but the thing that we do have available after we have the chance to litigate it even further, to drive the case home, is the ability to move to a vote. That will be how we can modulate the time frame. If we try to dismiss it out of the gate, we're going to leave enough scrap there to where they'll hang on to it and say that we thwarted the process.
That was Senator Mike Braun of Indiana, and he's important because he won in 18 against this tidal wave in the House that had them win 40 seats. And Braun is kind of a Trump-like figure. He's a businessman, really hadn't been a politician, came here as kind of a reformer, came here as somebody outside the box. And he's sitting in, and we've got reports today that, up on the Hill, they're talking about anywhere from a week or 10 days to 6 weeks or 8 weeks. So this thing is going to go to a real trial in the United States Senate, and the acquittal of Donald Trump is not going to come without them trying to blunt the arc of the Trump presidency. So what you voted in 16, remember, Nigel Farage had to cut a deal in London. They're not going to get the 40 seats they want to run for, and here's why. Brexit and 2016 are inextricably linked. And if you notice, the United Kingdom that voted a couple of months before the Trump victory, they're not out of the EU. Oh, yeah, that's the same EU that's forced their way into the Ukraine, wanted to make Ukraine part of the EU, wanted to make them part of NATO, got this whole fiasco going in the Ukraine that now Donald Trump is being impeached on. These things are all, this is the party of Davos. This is the global elites, the financiers, the corporatists, their politicians, the lobbyists around them that are trying to thwart the will of both the people in the United Kingdom and the people in the United States. And people have had enough of it, and they're going to say, hey, we're going to have to argue this thing out. We're going to have to win. And so every day, that's what the whole purpose of the show is, to give you the information you need to come to your own conclusion. You're going to be the jury. You're going to have to weigh and measure this. And the common decency, common sense of the American people, I think, will win out at the end of the day. Raheem, the other thing I want to give a shout out for, I turn back to Raheem. Mediaite, Dan Abrams had a debate today that was fantastic. Ackerman, who's on MSNBC all the time, he's a former Watergate prosecutor. He's a prosecutor for a U.S. attorney from the Southern District of New York. This guy's a pro's pro. He argued for impeaching. Argued for impeaching the president. Joel Pollack, one of the senior editors at Breitbart, argued against. Dan Abrams did a great job moderating this. It was absolutely fantastic. It's now on our site. You go to warroom.org. Here's the reason. It's quite technical. It's legal. These are two. Joel's a heavy-duty guy from Harvard Law School. Ackerman's obviously a top prosecutor, Dan Abrams. But if it's worth an hour of your time, sometime over the weekend, you go to our site, warroom.org. You click on it, cuts through to Mediaite. It's about an hour long, but you get a real sense from two pros of evidence, and it's a great summary. And debated by two guys that really went at it professionally. And that's what I liked about it. This was not a heated personal thing, but went about it professionally. So Joel Pollack and Ackerman, and it's up on our site now. You can link back to, and Dan Abrams, I think, did a great job. And there ought to be more of these things. I think we ought to take the heat out of these, but people have to have a sense of urgency. You have to want to know the details. When you're talking to your friends, you got to know what you're talking about. The way to do that is to go to sites like ours and others. Mediaite's one, particularly on this.
Well, it's good because, Steve, is it enough to say, well, it's fake news, he's not going to be impeached?
No, it's not.
That's what a lot of people are telling me.
He is going to get impeached. He's getting impeached by Nancy Pelosi. Sometime in December, they're bringing at least 2 charges. Matt Gaetz said today, Mark Meadows said the other day, people that defend the president, if you want to defend the election of 2016, if you do not want these anti-democratic forces to overturn this, you have to get engaged. The key to not having you impeached, if that was possible, is the 31 in this radio audience. Virginia 7 and Virginia 2. Those are 2 that Obama won twice. Trump won in 16. It flipped back to the Democrats with these freshman congressmen that Nancy Pelosi said when they were running, never mention the I word. Okay, I want you to talk about health care. I want you to talk about jobs. I want you to talk about the economy. I want to talk about national security. Never mention impeachment. Okay, this has got to be the toughest vote of their lives today. The gentleman, the WWE wrestler who heard about, we made him famous, Congressman Lee out in the district in Las Vegas, that Tarkanian did not win. He's running against her. He heard about the show. He contacted me, says, I'd love to come on the show. This is what people are talking about out there. Instead of her focusing on USMCA, instead of them focusing on the other business of people, they're all caught up now in this impeachment thing. And I just want to come on and make the case that, hey, we should be focused on the business of the country and not trying to impeach the president over a Ukraine arms deal. So this is starting to resonate throughout the country, and I think we have to continue to press that. And look, the American people are fair people. The American people are decent people. The American people have their own lives to live. They don't want all this stuff in their head all the time. But if Nancy Pelosi, who is a master of political warfare, believes it's appropriate to put the country through a constitutional crisis over the Thanksgiving, Christmas, and holiday season, then fine. Then let's get it all out there. Let's get all the information. Let the American people weigh and measure it and say, hey, this was a good use of our time. I happen to believe that they will look at that and say, that's not a good use of our time. That's not why we voted you guys up there. We want you up there to conduct the business of the people, not this, which is this ridiculous, I think, just going after President Trump on what I still say, and that's what I'm saying, this is a policy debate. It's a perfect phone call, okay? He did nothing wrong. This is all about, and I take, look, this thing started, part of it started with Peter Schweizer's book, Secret Empires. When that book was written, it came right after Clinton Cash. Before Clinton Cash came out, Peter and the research team started going through it. Joe Biden's political career was over, right? Joe Biden was out and retired. This was to look at the permanent political class of both parties. Go get a copy of Secret Empires. Secret Empires talks about Mitch McConnell and other Republicans and Joe Biden and Democrats, and it's about foreign money, foreign influence in this city. You know, Babylon on the Potomac, right? The 7 richest counties in this country surround this city. The greatest wealth in human history has been created by Silicon Valley, the tech revolution. The highest per capita income is not in Silicon Valley. It's around Washington, D.C. The 7 richest counties are around Washington, D.C. We don't produce anything here. How this possibly be? Here's what it is. The budget is a $4.2 trillion budget every year. $1.2 trillion or $1.3 trillion is discretionary. That means it gets spent. It's like a venture capital fund spending $1.2 trillion every year. And that's why you have the top, Ferrari dealership. That's why you have these boutiques. It's better than Paris, right? You don't have to go to Paris. Come to Washington, D.C., right? Look at Tyson's Corner. Tyson's Corner is like another city right now with mall after mall after mall. Why? That's the permanent political class. And what they want to do, they want to be everywhere, okay? And they want to have your kids everywhere. And they want to be spending your money everywhere, okay? That's why the 7 counties around Washington, D.C. are the richest counties in the country. Let's go. I want to go to Hurd. Here's what we need. We had Matt Gaetz on this morning. We had Mark Meadows the other day. Mark Meadows said, I asked him, how many people have been like Raheem and gone through the 2,700 or 2,900 pages of testimony? He said about a half a dozen. And I said, we need killers. You saw what Jordan did yesterday, how fantastic he was. He had the gotcha moment of the entire thing where he summarized it all. This is your star witness, right? Which was so fantastic. Let's talk about Hurd. Hurd was a little low energy yesterday, was it?
It was low energy yesterday. He was kind of even lower energy today.
Well, did you think those were great questions? I'm trying to be objective here. I'm not trying to pick on a guy. The guy's retiring, right? Probably not totally happy about it. Seems like a good guy. I think he's a former intelligence officer, right?
Correct.
He's a good man.
Former undercover intelligence.
But he served his country.
Yep.
I have no problem with him. He's decided to retire.
Yep.
But with those questions, how did you judge him yesterday?
Look, I don't actually think there's anything wrong with Will Hurd as a human being, and I have any respect for anybody who faithfully serves their nation. But the problem is, Will Hurd isn't faithfully serving the constituents that elected him right now. You know, he's one of the guys, probably the only guy up there yesterday, where I genuinely thought to myself, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Shouldn't you be taking a nap? And he took a nap publicly on Fox News today.
No. But didn't they talk on Fox? Didn't Dana Perino said you ask great questions? I said, but I'm not trying to put word in.
Of course, Dana Perino said that.
But did he not say today on national TV that he's not pushing for Hunter Biden. He's not pushing for the other 6 or 8 people that should be up there that have been requested, including the whistleblower. Right, but which I agree.
Well, he is, in his defense, he is pushing for the whistleblower.
Okay, fine, perfect. Let's give him a check mark for that. These other witnesses, he's pushing for the president's personal lawyer to come and answer questions on national TV in front of this. I don't get this.
Shall we hear from Mr. Hurd?
Yes, let's hear from Mr. Hurd.
Well, I don't think the phone call was perfect. I probably wouldn't have handled the phone call that way, but I don't think there was any evidence that suggests this was a violation of the law. I think impeachment proceedings are premature because Congress hasn't used all of its oversight function. Some of my question and some of the depositions that have been made publicly available, where people are asked, why did you think this was a political decision? They quote interviews on television or tweets by people other than folks that are actually in this administration. And so there's been no evidence to suggest that has happened. Even the Ambassador Taylor yesterday said that his response and his information he was getting was that the president said this is no quid pro quo. So for me, I think this whole exercise is very premature because we haven't even heard from all the folks that we need to hear from. I actually think we need to hear from Rudy Giuliani. He's critical in this issue.
Okay, so here's the drill. Because Nancy Pelosi is driving this like the blitzkrieg, right? This is going to come back from, they're going to get all the witnesses next week, I believe, write a report over Thanksgiving, let the nation argue, ruin a Thanksgiving dinner with a big fight over that, come back, toss it to the judiciary. I don't think they're going to have hearings, put the 2 counts up, argue on the floor, have a roll call vote, impeach the president sometime before Christmas. This has to have a sense of urgency. If you believe in the Trump movement, if you believe in MAGA, if you believe in President Trump, there has to be a sense of urgency that everybody, this is general quarters, all hands on deck, and you have to field the best team possible. I realize that there's prerogatives and there's history and there's tradition about these committees, but right now they were able to put Jim Jordan in, and Jim Jordan made the difference yesterday. It's not just the other people ask good questions, they did, but what Jordan can do is has a cadence to it. He has a drama to it that can be pulled out in that 30-second or 1-minute bite that really changes things, and then he can go on MSNBC. He can go on CNN. He knows how to go into not just Fox. He knows how to go into the enemy's camp. He knows how to be interviewed by the New York Times. He knows how to press it. Mark Meadows knows that. Lee Zeldin knows that. Matt Gaetz knows that. We have to field the killers.
Yeah, it's like T.S. Eliot and an auctioneer had a political love child when you have Jim Jordan up there. It is fast, it's to the punch, but it's also just, it's so well constructed that you look at somebody like Will Hurd, and we just heard from Will Hurd on Fox, which is a softball interview, by the way, for him. Should be a very softball interview. And the first 30 seconds of that, the reason I left those first 30 seconds in, and I got some weird looks in this room when I did so, was because he's talking about nothing. He's sort of blathering on in sort of circumlocutory fashion about nothing.
But this whole thing about it's too premature. Hey, maybe it is and maybe it isn't. That's just conversation. There's a process going on. If you didn't know, Nancy Pelosi's already passed you on that. Let's talk about this process. There's a very concerning individual that nobody's talking about right now. On this show, we try to give you a heads up. We're going to get more into this tomorrow. But now, and I don't understand this process, you've had a whistleblower, now we have the eavesdropper. We had eavesdropper 1, and now we got eavesdropper 2. These are people that in a restaurant on July 26th, the political officer, and I think it's another political officer of Ambassador Taylor's, heard Sondland take a phone call from the president. Here's what beggars belief. This has been the biggest story in the world for the last couple of months, since September 24th when Nancy Pelosi came in there. You really expect me to believe that a political officer, particularly for a guy like Taylor, and Ambassador Taylor's a West Point grad, 101st Airborne, fought in Vietnam, awarded Valor, the V with Valor, Bronze Star. Hey, he seems like a guy that his staff is on top of things. I just don't get the fact that they just informed him last Friday, and now we got Eavesdropper 2. Who's that?
Well, I see. I'm gonna shock you here. The Eavesdropper 2, according to the Associated Press, is somebody called Surya Jayanti, a Foreign Service officer based in Kiev. And interestingly, Surya was one of the original people supposed to be deposed in the original closed-door depositions, and never happened. So they're bringing back a cast member that didn't get the role last time.
No, but a new audition. They're going to get an audition.
Well,
like I said,
but
this is what I understand. This process is so convoluted. We're having depositions while we're already having public hearings, and we're still doing depositions. So they're going to go back and depose both these people on Friday and Saturday? Yeah. In the Star Chamber, we're going to go back to that?
That's exactly what's happening. But you think about if yesterday didn't go well for you. Let's say that the Democrats admit that yesterday didn't go well for them.
With a bombshell.
With a bombshell.
Quote unquote bombshell.
So, who else do we have in the black book? Oh, well, this person didn't come. And what does that person know? Surely they knew already what she knew. And that's what they're bringing up now. This is all theater. And I guarantee you that we will find out someday that these people had already said what they knew, and they're just dripping it out.
Well,
Surya is their insurance policy.
Fine. We'll check that out, and we'll make sure we get the transcripts. Let's go to something else that's quite concerning me, and what I don't understand. Correct me if I'm wrong, because people have gotten on the phone with me, and they said, I think you're wrong on this, Steve, and I don't think I am. Is an individual from OMB, Office of Management and Budget, are they scheduled to be deposed on Saturday in this very city?
Yes.
And please give me a name.
The name is Mark Sandy, was actually the acting director of the Office of Management and Budget before Mick Mulvaney took over, and is now the director of National Security Programs at OMB, and was originally scheduled to appear before the committee on Friday, November 8th, but was an original no-show, is now listed as appearing Saturday, November the 16th at 10 a.m. for closed-door testimony.
Okay, this is why we have this is why we're 7 days a week. This story is breaking. News is breaking on this every day. We're 7 days a week. We're going to be here Saturday and tee that up for you testifies. But this is what I don't understand, and I think we got to get Rivkin or one of the lawyers or our guy from Florida on tomorrow. I don't understand. I thought Pat Scipione sent a letter out, an 8-page letter, and it said, we're not cooperating.
You're talking about White House counsel.
White House counsel would send it out. We're not cooperating. We're exerting executive privilege and a whole bunch of other things. And this is what I don't understand. You've had some people up, some people down. You got Kupperman. They're going to go argue to the Supreme Court or whatever about separation of powers, which Judge Luddick says could be the most important case on separation of powers ever. How is an individual from OMB, is he still work there?
It appears so. There's nothing to say he doesn't work there.
How does somebody from OMB show up on Saturday to have a discussion when we have Mr. Blair, Mr. Vogt, and Mr. Mulvaney, who look to me in the chain of command, somehow senior maybe to this individual? They're not doing it.
Yeah.
I don't understand how we go down the food chain and we just somebody's got to explain this to me. So we'll get some lawyers on here tomorrow.
I'll explain right now.
Okay.
In Mr. Sandy's defense, we don't know whether he will appear.
And I'm not picking on him. I'm highlighting. He was already supposed to appear one other time,
and was already a quote unquote no show.
That was Friday a week ago.
So it is not clear whether or not he has actually agreed, or whether they've just put him on the schedule again, like they did last time. That has not been clarified.
Okay,
Sandy
fine.
has not commented.
I'm feeling better about that now. But why would they do this? Are they going to try to do this to try to shame the White House and say you're not putting the OMB guys up? This is a major constitutional
opens up another
question.
front of attack.
Well, fine.
The front of attack is they want the emails from OMB, because if you go back and you read the testimonies from Catherine Croft and you go back and you read the testimonies from Laura Cooper, what they say is that when they went out there and said asked what was going on, why is the delay to the aid, they were told OMB has questions.
Right.
And so they want to know what the questions were.
But wasn't it also that they said, you keep saying you don't have anyone at first-hand knowledge?
Right.
So if you're going to have a junior OMB person, why can't Mulvaney come?
Yeah. Well, we'll reach out to Rivkin. I think this is where the lawyers step in, and this is a constitutional question about separation of powers. This is a constitutional question about executive privilege. This has all got to be argued out. So you're saying it's not like they've named him. I thought they announced that he was going to attend. They've named him. We don't know if he's going to attend.
That's correct.
Just like the second eavesdropper.
That's correct.
What else we have? The bribery we went through. What else? What's our punch list here?
We've punched everything today.
Well, I've got a question
go
for
ahead.
the strategist, Mr. Bannon.
I'm a tactician here.
Yeah.
I'm just a guy checking. I'm
You
just
got
a
1
guy.
minute.
I'm just a guy moving.
You talk about masters of the game. You got to say Bill Clinton's a master of the game. Why did he make those comments today?
You think that undercuts his wife? She, by the way, she's chomping at the bit to jump in this race.
That's correct.
Deval Patrick. The one thing about this, the impeachment, it's changed the entire dynamic of the 2020 campaign already. This is why Michael Bloomberg's in.
Yep.
This is because Biden, they thrown Biden under the bus. The Democrats are the ones that served Biden up,
Yep.
right? They had no problem with Biden in this thing, so the centrists don't have. That's what Deval Patrick is in. This is why Michael Bloomberg's in. This is why Hillary Clinton. Okay, Stephen K. Bannon, War Room Impeachment. We're going to be back live tomorrow at 9 a.m. A lot to go through, a lot of wood to chop tomorrow, so make sure you hear us on the John Frederick Radio Network.